Stop it. All right. Hey, folks, if you're joining us through YouTube, we're going to start talking about Chapter 7. We have the terms Louis the Pious, the Treaty of Verdun, fragmentation of the Franks, and threats to the empire. Those are the terms we're going to discuss. After we're done talking about it, I'm going to take a picture and put it up on Google Classroom so you have a copy of our notes. Please just keep along with us in your readings, and I'm going to get my PowerPoints that I have the images that I'm using to discuss, and I'm going to save it as a PDF so I can save it with you without taking too much data. All right, so if you folks remember or not, we were talking about last time we were talking about the rise of Charlemagne. Now we are going to have more readings that we're going to have on Charlemagne, like primary source stuff, like little bitty letters and stuff like that. I'm going to talk about some stuff also on some of the civil wars that follow afterwards. Those really brutal. Civil wars always are brutal. There's something about whenever people are fighting someone that they see as a traitor, they're more cold and brutal to than they would be with like a foreigner, right? It's like if someone betrays you, it's a lot more personal. And some other stuff. So this is a famous painting of Charlemagne, Christmas Day, the year 800, being crowned king and emperor of the Roman Empire, they call it. But really, it's the Frankish Empire because he was a Frank and he was in charge of a bunch of Germanic Christian people, or at least they would be. So let's see a picture of the map that had his kingdom. So once again, you have the Frankish kingdom here. There was talk to where he wanted to invade England and take that in, but they didn't really have good navies and stuff back then, and he had a lot of problems at home, and he was advancing in age. He also wanted to take Spain back from the Moors, but that was another one of those things he just couldn't bring into fruition. However, when he died, he had his son, Louis the Pious. Louis the Pious is, this isn't the only time this is going to happen, where you have a very intelligent monarch, but he's not a statesman. The thing that kept the empire together was always the threat of war. Louis wasn't a warrior. He was kind of a pacifist guy. He had a very religious upbringing, and he was called Louis the Pious, which means like really religious, right? And so he was a very devout Christian. He knew scriptures well. He went to church every day. He spent a long portion of his day in prayer. But his sons grew up being very power hungry, very bloodthirsty and cold. And so they would eventually declare war on their own father, imprison him, and have his kingdom divided up. And these are Charlemagne's grandkids. And so you see here on the map, you have the Western Empire, the central one, and the eastern one. Eventually, one of the three grandsons will pass away and it'll be split in half. However, like the book said, they're going to face a lot of different, for one thing, the people are really disunified. They all speak different languages. They all have different cultural backgrounds. They don't have anything gluing them together other than the fact that Charlemagne beat them up. There's not really any roads. There's no communication. There's no point in being part of this kingdom because you're not getting anything out of it. So local strongmen take care of, I guess, in charge of different areas. They have invaders from the north come in, invaders from the east, they have invaders from the south. They're getting attacked from all directions, so they're getting really broken apart there too. And of course, the guys in charge tend to have civil wars every now and again. So they're being broken apart from within. So it's just total chaos all through there. And that's a major problem for this empire trying to stick together. So let's go on and let's start talking about our notes. Hey, Andrew, can you do that later?
I'm almost done. I only have two more.
No, let's just do it later. I'm talking. All right. So Louis the Pious. So who is he again? I kind of just told you.
He's some important
He's the
king.
son of, what's his name?
Careless Magnus. Charlemagne, yeah. So, son of Charlemagne, he inherits the whole kingdom. And everybody's all happy. They're like, wow, a peaceful transference of power. It didn't work that long. So, what was his character like?
Very
Very devout. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. But he just wasn't, he didn't focus on keeping the kingdom together. It was like a full-time job, and he was trying to treat it like a hobby, you know?
What was pious?
Pious, it means like you're very religious. You observe your religion very seriously, right?
I know that.
So like a pious ancient Greek would like always do their little sacrifices and the Zeus and stuff like that. Or, you know, so.
So he's the one who gets jumped by his kids.
Yes, he does. He does. So, devout Christian, and like I said, not focused on ruling. And see, the thing is that part of this might have been the character of Charlemagne himself, because he was known as being a very doting father, right? He was very kind to his kids. In fact, he never like back then, especially for royalty, you would pick your daughter's husbands and send them off to another country to go marry someone. He never did that. He kept them home, and he gave them whatever they wanted. He let them marry whoever they wanted, which was very weird back then. People didn't do that. And his son, he didn't like introduce a hard life on him like he had and things like that. But of course, because Louis didn't know those kind of hardships, he didn't know how serious he had to be in a lot of situations. His kids, however, being super wealthy, sons of a king, they had a lot of people who helped influence them for their own ends. This happens with princes and princesses often. You'll have people who want to use them for their own needs. And so you have Louis' sons are being pulled about by power-hungry people. They're like, hey, each one of them's being told they would be the best king and that their father's like worthless and stuff. And so they rebel. All right. So moving on from there, what about the Treaty of Verdun? So what was this about? What happened here?
Those where they decided what sons.
Exactly right there. Yes. Now Louis had a lot of sons, but he had only I think 3 that lived and fought in the war. So you had let's see, the 3 sons of Louis Pius, because they got to write the Pius not to get confused. So there's going to be a lot of Louis. And their names were Lothar, Charles the Bald, and you don't have to have their names memorized. I'm just trying to jog my memory. And I think the other one was another Louis. I wrote it down. No, you don't have to. Yeah, the other was Louis the German. You don't have to memorize. I'm just writing it down. Louis. So he fought their father. In a war. Imprisoned him. And divided his kingdom in 3.
I'll fix that. But hey, Jaden's back and he can be my scribe. Yay, Jaden! All right. So he made some friends. Well, you don't pay attention to where Jaden goes?
No.
What? All right. All right. Hey, wrong one. That's wrong. All right. All right, cool. So we got that. So you got Treaty of Verdun. Of course, there's another treaty. We're not so worried about that. Just know that what's important here is that now all of a sudden the kingdom is no longer a kingdom. It's kingdoms. So fragmentation of the Franks. This is this, but here's what's important. What do these areas become?
3 different kingdoms.
3 different kingdoms, but that's going to help them become
One bigger kingdom.
what?
One bigger kingdom.
All right, so it is the land of the Franks. Is that the land of the Franks today? What does it become?
Germany.
Yeah. So I would put leads to the creation of Germany. Now they're not going to call themselves Germany for like hundreds of years, but for our purposes, we'll call it Germany. And France, and of course a bunch of other little places. So, Netherlands, but yeah. So really, and this fragmentation is going to lead to the languages too. They're not a unified people. They all kind of speak like this weird mixture of like in the Germanic lands in the east, they mostly speak Germanic languages. And in the western part, they mostly speak Latin. But the Latin's kind of Germanized and becomes French. What you got, Robert? You may. So yeah, that's all we really need on that one. Cool. Hey, last one. Threats to the empire. What are the threats to the empire? Everyone. What were the Aztecs threats? There were no Aztecs yet. But I mean, like maybe Mayans. Like, who was threatening them?
The
Invaders.
Invaders. Yeah, invaders. Like
European version of
they had names for them. Yeah, put down invaders, and then we'll put down who these invaders were.
The Goths.
No. The Goths are kind of like they're largely gone now. This is a little bit after that.
the Scots.
The Scots, no. They were never that far up north. Hey, look at your book. A lot of them are bolded. Like, see, we got some that are like begins with an N, some that begins with an M. So, what are the bold ones towards the end of the chapter? The Northmen, yeah. So Vikings and Northmen, that's one. So those are the guys from the north. So the Northmen, and of course they're the ones who like believe in like Thor and stuff like that.
Loki.
Going to Valhalla if you're a brave warrior and dying in battle, all that stuff, right? And we're gonna watch a video on the Vikings later. All right, but what about from the east? Who comes from the east, like Hungary and stuff like that? People. It begins with the N. Yeah, the Magyars. Yeah. So, all right. So MAG. YARS. So the Magyars are like people who are related to, like those Avars we talked about, horseback riding, bow shooting, raiders.
So it's
No,
like the
Genghis
their
Khan.
version of the Indians.
The what?
Of the Indians is the European version of the Indians.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because like we're gonna talk more about these people later when we talk about like Genghis Khan. And so yeah, they're very well structured. Yeah, they're tribal based, but they can have kings and stuff like that. And of course, from the south, like their holdings in Italy and stuff like that, they're going to be threatened by Muslim invaders. So now they're not going to stick around for the most part in these places. There's some parts like in southern Italy and Sicily is going to be taken over by Muslims for quite some time. And so, yeah, they're facing all these threats and they're fighting. And the last is civil war. You put down Civil War. And so that's the last one. So yeah, like everything is falling apart. It's like end of the world troubles for them. And there was a movement, like there's a reoccurring theme within European history. It's called millennialism. And that doesn't have to do with like what we think of millennials, but it's the idea that the end of the world is at the turn of a millennium. So a lot of people thought that like with all this chaos and the fall of Rome was a sign of the end of days, right? And they're going to go through that again when they get to Black Death. They're going to think it's the end of days for them, and they're all going to freak. Yeah, it is. It's going to be like a big freakout movement all over. Hey, Jake, credits up for me. Hey, what are the pages on this?
On the back of them, not the other page.
Oh, good.
That's the only way to print.
Sweet. Hey, look at this.
Have lots of problems.
Jaden gave us a gift.
Yay,
Jake. All right.
No.
Hey, for those of you who are online, I'm going to have to scan this and put it up on the Google Classroom for you to read. But we're going to read a letter from Alcuin, who was a friend of Charlemagne, and he was also a very well-educated clergyman from England, on his thoughts on education. So I'll get a copy of this for you. But otherwise, everyone else in the classroom, I'm going to pass you out a set. And we are going to use this for, I think we're going to have a little assignment over this. Tamari. Yeah, right. Like a little assignment. It's not a homework assignment. I would like you to go ahead and start reading this now. We're going to discuss it, and I'll have just a little tiny assignment to make sure you actually read it. There you go. So you see, you're welcome. You see, you got the first part, and you're like, hey, the other half is cut off in half. Just flip it over. There it is.
Well, flip which way?
So we're reading To the King on the State of Learning in His Day. When you read this part and you're done, then you should read the other part.
Okay.
Look, I know it's magical. But we got it, and that's what counts. It's pretty short, really. I mean, if you put it all together, it's just basically a page. So if y'all can read that for me.
What are we reading?
You're reading To the King on the State of Learning in This Day, page 122, and then flip it, page 123. Forget the part on Lynn's farm. We'll read that later. We can read that later when we start learning about the Northmen. And I got a video for you about the Northmen later. So learn about those. Yeah, going to Viking. Because to them, Viking was a verb. Viking wasn't a noun. Yeah, Viking was something you did. All right, folks. So that does it for today's lecture. It's pretty short. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss the reading that I will post for you, but I can't yet. And chapter 8. So make sure you read chapter 8 for me. I will also get an assignment based on the reading ready for you too. So you're going to have to wait, and I'm going to try to have that up for you by this afternoon when I can get to a way to fax it. All right, thank you. Go ahead and post